Well, hello, all of my crafty friends. As promised, today I am here to bring you guys just the coloring portion that was from our Savior Sunday series for this past week. Now, I've never done this before, so I'm not quite sure what we're going to talk about over these next 25 minutes, but we're going to give it a try, and I definitely want to know what you guys think in the comments below. So we're going to get started, and I'm starting out with her skin tones. So you guys, I typically start with my lightest color, and I do what is called color mapping. And I'm just going in and I'm kind of looking to see what places I think or know will have a shadow. And when I say no, I mean cast shadowing. So cast shadowing is where one object is over another. So where her hair is falling over her face, where the flowers are laying over her body, where her top is laying on top of her body, where her head is laying on her shoulder, where her arm right here is laying over her body. All of those are places that I already know for certain will cast a shadow. And so I'm going in with my lightest color and I'm just outlining those areas so that I can start building up my color. Now, when I say build up color, I know that I've mentioned this in previous videos, but I typically go from my lightest color all the way up to my darkest, and that is in that exact same area. So I'm not extending this out any initially. As you can see, I'm going right over the color prior to it, and this helps with two things. First, this is helping me to saturate my paper so that once I get to my darkest color and I'm coming back down, I can blend out a little bit easier. But secondly, this allows me to have the opportunity to decide where I definitely want shadows to be. So when you're building up color, say I got to this color here, which is the E15, and I decided that is I don't want to go any darker. I would know to skip over the rest of the darkest colors in my sequence in that particular area. So you see, I'm adding more shadowing behind her arm. If I was getting to a point where I felt like that was too dark, I could stop there and just skip over my darkest color in that area. Or like around her hairline, I took what we call creative license and I added some additional shadowing in that area. So if I was getting to this color and I felt like I didn't want it to be any darker right here around her hairline, then I would know to skip over the other color. So that's the reason why I build up my color. It gives me an opportunity to look and see if I feel like the depth of each of my colors is pretty well where I want it to be, or do I want to go all the way out? Remember, you don't have to have every single color in every single spot. I sometimes feel that way, but you can resist the urge, I will say. The other thing that I do a lot, pretty well every time I'm doing my coloring. So once I get done with this darkest color, I'm going to start moving back down, and that's where I'm going to start extending my colors out. And this first time, when I start extending out my colors, I'm going directly over the color before it and just extending out more. Again, allowing me the opportunity to get my paper good and saturated the way that I want it to be, as well as giving me the opportunity to figure out how much I want to extend my colors. So this first time, I am usually very conservative with how much color I'm laying down. Just kind of giving myself a guide. So during my first trip down, I usually end up with a huge highlight, which is completely fine. Because I always go back in again. So this last time that I'll go in, I'll start with the darkest color because now I kind of know where I want each of my colors to end up being. Now this does take longer. However, when I'm coloring, I try my best not to have any mindset of time. I really use this as a therapeutic medium. So when I'm doing it, I try to very much so focus on just what I'm doing versus the timing, which is why the coloring typically takes a longer time in my videos than they probably would normally. I'm not doing this just for the sake of doing the video. Like, this really is one of my therapeutic skills that I utilize on a very regular basis, and I find it to be very calming. So you can see I've gotten to the lightest color, and like here with her arm, you can see there's a huge highlight here, which is completely fine because in my mind, when I was doing this picture, she's laying in a field of flowers and the sun is coming down on her. So there is a good probability that there is a larger highlight in some areas. But now you can see this is my third round, and I went straight in with my darkest color. I'm deepening up where I know I want my shadows to be, and I'm going back in just to blend out my colors the best that I can in order to get the shading that I want for her skin. Now, it always looks weird to me when I'm coloring her skin. I always start with the skin first. I don't think there's any real rhyme or reason for that other than it's just the unspoken rule of crafters, but I don't know whether it's some type of actual artistic method to doing your skin first. So usually when I'm done with my skin, I feel like, oh my gosh, it's too dark or it looks a little weird. But I've also come to understand from watching many of my Copic colorists on YouTube that that's the norm. And also when I'm looking, I try to go ahead and move forward versus looking at the coloring while it is still wet. Although it's not wet to the touch, I think that they're still moving and intertwining in the paper, in the threads of the paper. And so when you go back, it looks a little bit different sometimes than it did initially. So I usually try to come back, walk away, look at it again, and then I usually feel a bit better. So that was her skin tone. So I used one of my lightest colors. I will be bringing in a blue combination, and I used that to do some shadowing. I actually used the two lightest colors. So right at the base of her eyelid, I used that lightest mid-tone, and then I used my lightest blue, and then I go right over that with my lightest skin tone color just to kind of blend all that in. So then I go into working on her hair. Now, when I do her hair, I start out with my darkest color. I don't do what I'm doing with the skin because I don't want everything to blend in as well. Now, I do create my shadows first. So as you can see, I went in and I went around where all the flowers are because I know that that's going to cast a shadow on her hair. And then I'm looking for what I call my valleys. So wherever her hair is folding downward, I know that that is going to get less light than everything else. So I want those areas to show more darkness. So that's why you see me kind of skipping around and going through and choosing where I want some darkness to be. There's not a whole lot of rhyme or reason with some hair types. Well, I shouldn't say it's not rhyme or reason, but there's a lot going on with some of the hairs, especially the ones that I find myself enjoying to color. And so you could try to figure out each chunk of hair and each strain of hair and where they go. But that becomes a little more stress for me than I enjoy. So I typically try for the bulk of my hair to ensure that I have first good strokes. I'm doing a lot of stroke marks. I don't want them to all blend together to show some dimension to her hair, but then also making sure that there is a good variation of color. So I want there to be a significant difference between my darkest color and my lightest color. And I want to make sure that the folds make sense. So I always think of mountains and valleys when I'm doing hair. Like, where is the hair coming up or folding outward, and then where is it divoting or going inward or making the valleys. Valleys I always make darker, and my mountains I always make lighter. So that is kind of my mindset when I'm doing hair. I will tell you that I prefer wavy hair a lot more because it's just consists of those mountains and valleys, and I find that I do very well with that. Whereas with some hair that doesn't have a lot of illustration to it, I struggle with, because then it causes me to have to create my own ideas, variations, I guess is the best way to put that. So now we're going to move on to this blue combination that I've done, and this is what I'm going to use for her shirt. Now with that blue combination, my idea was the way that she's laying, that the part of the shirt that is furthest away from us is going to probably get the most light, because it's going to be going toward the sun more, or at least that's the way it played out in my mind. Like I said, I don't know whether this is a completely or has any validity actually. And that's one of the great things about coloring. You can really make up your own rules, I don't call myself an artist, and I don't think I ever will, simply because I enjoy the freedom of being a colorist versus an artist. I get to kind of do what I want. And I want you guys to remember that when you're doing your coloring, that first of all, don't compare yourself to other people. I hear a lot of times, it's not as good as. But if it is better than it was for you on yesterday, then you have made great progress, and that is what you should be going for. And I found myself enjoying my coloring so much more when I chose to do that. When I chose to look at my coloring, and I think that I was listening to Kelly Latavola when she was doing some coloring, and that was the advice that she gave. Like, don't compare yourself to other people. Compare yourself to yourself on yesterday, and you will then see your progress. You only see progress when you're comparing yourself to yourself. So just try to make sure that you guys are enjoying this, mostly, like more than anything, enjoying it. So of course I wanted to bring in a weird combination. I don't really call it weird, but I wanted some blue greens in my leaves. So I brought in a combination that consisted of the BGs and the YGs. And I only used, I believe, one YG marker, and that was just to do some kind of glazing. And so when you do color glazing, you're essentially putting another color over your primary colors to give a different hue to the image that you are coloring. So for me, that would be the YG. I have the BG colors that I'm doing, but I'm going to use a YG to bring in a little bit more of that yellow greenish tint to make it look more like leaves. So that is how I'm going to do that. And I really like the way that this combination came out. I was a little bit leery. I was like, I don't want to look like I have blue leaves, but hey, it's going to be mine, and it's a little whimsical anyways. So if it doesn't look all natural, it will be okay, right? Yes. So while I'm coloring that, I hope that you guys are starting off to an amazing week. I hope you guys had a great weekend and a great 4th of July. And I pray that you all stayed safe and took care of yourselves, because I would love for my community to stay happy and healthy. We did not do much of anything this weekend. We did grill a little bit on Saturday, but it was definitely different from what our family typically does, because that is usually our one huge barbecue of the year, where we typically invite a lot of people and do a ton of grilling and cooking. I will say that it was nice to sit and do some crafting this weekend versus staying in the kitchen for 12 hours, but I did miss being able to be around other people and having that one time of the year that we kind of say thank you to our community, to the people that we work with and things like that. It's been a staple for our family. So I will say that it was a little bit different this year, celebrating alone, but it was okay. All in all, I do notice that for me, staying in the house is not a huge deal. I am, what I've said several times, naturally introverted, but I did notice that my husband, by the time we got to Sunday, was going stir crazy, and I could not understand why. And so, you know, sometimes it's hard to put on that perspective to see that other people don't deal with things the same way that you do. So you guys see, we've gone on to these RVs so that I can color in the flowers. So for those, I chose to go in and color the entire petal with my lightest color to get my paper saturated. And I was kind of thinking about the way that I wanted these petals to look. And I'm not going to color all of them with this RV combination, but I am going to color more of the bigger flowers in this image with this color combination. So going in with my lightest color, and then after I get my paper saturated, I'm going directly in with the darkest color. And when I do the darkest color, what I'm doing is for each petal, I am bringing in some depth from the tip and the base. So where the center of the flower is, coming out from the center of the flower, as well as the tip of the flower. And then I want to create kind of a cup motion in the center of the flower. Just because of the way it was drawn, it looked to me like these flowers would cup in. So I have those darker lines coming around the center walls. So to me, this flower looks like it's about 3 different sections. And so I wanted to show some variation in that. So I am kind of creating a lot of depth in the center portion of the flower, creating a clear delineation between the left and right and the center. So that was kind of my idea, and I do enjoy the way that this came out. And again, this is that creative license, right? Like, I did not go and Google. I don't even know what kind of flower this is, to tell you guys the truth. Like, I love flowers so much, but I have no clue what most flowers are. It has been through coloring that I have learned the name of tons of flowers. Like before 3 or 4 years ago, well, 3 years, I guess, because I've only been crafting for 3 years. I didn't know what a chrysanthemum was. I loved that flower. I think they're beautiful. Had no idea what the name of it was. You know, I knew what my favorite flower was because I love calla lilies, and I love tulips. So I knew those flowers, but I am completely not a flower person, in regards to knowledge. So I don't typically look up flowers because I don't know what to look up. So I do what I enjoy the majority of the time when I am doing my flowers. And when I'm picking out color combinations, I will tell you guys the honest truth. The first thing that I think is, when was the last time I used purple as a primary color in a card? Okay, I should give them a little bit of variation, or I'm ready to go with some more purple. That's the first thing. So if I haven't used purple in the previous card, usually 9 times out of 10, you're going to see some purple. I have my favorite purple combination, that is BV08, V17, V15, and V12. That is my go-to. I love that combination and the color that it creates. But you guys probably noticed that you see a lot of the blue greens, the blues, the violets, and then RV, I use that pretty frequently. The only time that I see myself using a lot of yellow is when I'm doing my gold combination. And that's usually because I want to do a color matching with purple. So I have a wonderful Copic collection, but I sometimes have to stretch myself to use color combinations that are different from my norm. And I do like playing with colors. Sometimes they don't come out the best. Like with my skin tones and my hair, I always am trying to do something a little bit different. And I typically start out with the Sandy Allnock Human Rainbow, and then I add a color or two to it because her Human Rainbow is only 3 color blends, and I usually do 4 or 5 colors with my skin tones. So I usually add a darker and a lighter tone, or a lighter tone and then another mid-tone into the combination that she's created. And sometimes I just pick a color and try to see what I can create with it. So you guys can see I'm bringing back in my blues, and for these ones that I have colored with the RV markers, I am going in and doing the centers in my blue combination just to kind of try to make this image cohesive. And I was also thinking about the colors that I was using for like my sentiment, and then I did a frame on the inside of the card. I will make sure that I link the actual video to the card making process for you guys, but it was the Sunday video from this past Sunday, episode number 11. And then I'm doing what we call some stippling. So I'm just going in and creating dots. I'm doing the darkest colors toward the outside, going in toward the center, making it the lightest. And that just tends to give a little bit of variation. And I also noticed that there were these dots on the inside of the flowers. If anyone knows what type of flower this is supposed to be, you know, I always would love to hear what I don't know in the comment section. So I brought out some of my Jelly Roll pens for these little dots that are illustrated in the center of the flowers. Now, I love my Jelly Roll pens because they are another medium that you can use to color with. And they have this, they don't dry fast. So if you want to like smear them around to make some of your colors kind of mixed in, you can. There's a lot of different things that you can do with them. I love the fact that they have the metallics and the gold metallics and the shimmer ones. There are a lot of different variations. There are different sizes that you can use, and you'll see here in a second. Think when I go to find some other colors, I show you the container that I have. I think I have the gift set size. I think it's the full collection. I'm not positive, but I will link it for you guys. And so I'm going in and I'm doing some black, some gold, and then that I want to call it Stardust, but that's the color of Stickles. And then this silver Starburst color for the centers of the flowers. And to me, it gives a little bit of shimmer to your card. It gives a little bit of dimension because these do end up being a tad bit raised when you are done, but nothing that is super noticeable. But to me, it does just give a little bit of a pop on the page. So I'm just going through with those 3 colors and doing additional stippling really to the centers to show those dotting details that the illustrator created for us. So once I get done with that, I decided to use my gold pen to color in some of the other flowers because I was stuck. I was just like, I've used my RV and I've used my blue. I don't want to overwhelm it with too many colors. What can I do? And I was like, I could color with my Jelly Roll pens. That will be pretty cool, and it will give some awesome shimmer. And you guys know I'm all about the shimmer. So I decided that I would use that gold one to color in and give some color, just some color to these other flowers, leaving in some white space. And then I am going to bring in my other Jelly Roll pens, and I'm going to try to find something that will match the blue and the RV that I have used for the outer portions of the other flowers to do the centers of these flowers. And I thought that it came out really well, but I would love for you guys to let me know what you guys think about this. how you feel like it turned out. I thought that it was cute, but you know, I'm partial to myself, I think. But I love to hear what you guys have to say. So, oh, I did want to let you guys know that toward the end of this month, actually the last Saturday of this month, we will be starting the reverse hop for my 1,000 subscriber giveaway. So you guys make sure you're staying tuned for that information. It will be over a total of 5 weeks, and there will be a total of 5 different chances to win 5 different prizes. So you guys see that I've added some of that jelly roll into her hair. I just felt like that would give kind of a sun-kissed look. Now I found my jelly roll pins that I think would coordinate well. They are these metallic gold ones, and I'm trying to get you guys focused. And they bring off this the pink color, but then as it dries, it gives this kind of gold hue. The pink and the blue does that. So I thought that that was really, really neat. So I'm going to do some stippling with those for the centers of the flowers that I use the gold jelly roll pin on. And then that will pretty much finish us out. I think that that was everything that I did with this this image. So I would love to know what you guys think. I would love to know if this is something that you guys would like to see more, so that you can see the full coloring of the images that I do, because you know sometimes it just cannot all fit in the actual card making video. So this is what she turned out looking like, you guys. Please let me know in the comments what you guys think about just a full coloring video. Was this a good speed? Would you like for it to be slower? Would you like for it to be sped up? Do you not like this at all? I am trying to make sure that this is something that you guys like. So let me know in the comments. I will be looking forward to chatting with you guys soon. I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day. I will talk to you guys really soon in the next video. Bye-bye.